Across this globe, people of all ages, ethnicities, backgrounds, and challenges have what they describe as an ordinary story. Here, no one is ordinary. We celebrate people for who they are and, more importantly, who they've always wanted to be. Some used to play sports, others never got the chance to. In the virtual world, nothing else matters except your will to be great and your ability to make an impact on and off the field. We build friendships. We build teamwork. We celebrate in the wins and gain fuel from the losses. The true melting pot, a celebration of how exciting and fun life can be. Tonight, 20 more get drafted from couch to field, and the stories they will share, the moments they will cherish with their friends, present and future, their families and children for years to come, are anything but ordinary. This is the SFL Rookie Draft.
All right, everybody, welcome to round 2 of the season 14 SFL Rookie Draft. I am Mike Daggs. I'll be your host tonight, and along with me, a whole new panel, except for Ray Bentley. He's back. I just can't seem to shake that guy. So back again is Ray Bentley. But why don't we start off with Colin Northrup, co-owner of the St. Louis Gladiators. Colin, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I am fantastic, Mike.
Colin, we all saw a very heartwarming video about you and your family and your SFL journey. It's great to have you here with us tonight too, and wish you could have been in Boston with us, but to have you here for round 2, it's fantastic. Looking forward to having you here. And we have Stephen Hackard with us, Queen City Corsairs wide receiver, and you're also the GM now, I hear, right?
Yeah, general manager and defensive coordinator as well.
Gosh, Eric Barkley will just put anybody in charge of these teams. That's unbelievable.
He gave me a shot, but I appreciate it, and I give it everything I have.
Sounds great. Great to have you here. Ray Bentley, you're back with us, man.
It's once again an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to be here and scream and ruin everyone's speakers once again.
Yeah.
And again, I cannot wait for some drama tonight. I need it. I gotta have it.
Well, for everybody's ears, I'm kind of hoping there is no drama, so you can just stay somewhat relaxed, kind of like you look in your photo. It's too bad you couldn't join us on webcam, but
I am wearing the exact same thing, I will say.
Well, I would have to imagine you probably never even changed since.
No, not once.
I wouldn't think so. Showered? Nah. Why would we do that? Robert Garrett Jr., London Knights, tight end, the most important position in the league. Happy to have you here. How you doing tonight, Robert?
I'm doing awesome. Glad to be here.
All right, man. Thanks for joining us. Well, let's not waste any more time. Let's get this second round started. Turn it over to our commissioner and fearless leader, Cameron Irvine. He will get things started.
Welcome to the second round of the SFL Winter 2020 Draft. St. Louis, you are on the clock with the 21st pick.
All right, so the St. Louis Gladiators are on the clock. Colin, do you need to run off and go do something, or somebody else handling the drafting duties for you tonight?
I got my GM and Dwayne there. They're taking care of it.
Got a whole team taking care of you.
Both of them have really done their homework. Gerald Smith, our general manager, head coach, especially.
I forgot that you guys
really
got
putting
Gerald
in the work.
I forgot you guys got Gerald Smith. So you're all set. You got Gerald, you're good to go. He's a top-notch stat man, and I'm sure he's going to be fantastic for you helping out your team. So do you want to save us all the speculation, and you can just tell us who it is that you're picking? Just cut to the chase, or
Come on, Colin.
Come on, I had to ask. All right, well, why don't we just skip over Colin for right now, since he's got too much inside information and it takes all the fun out of it. So Steven, we'll start with you. The team needs for St. Louis: wide receiver, kicker, defensive end, inside linebacker. Where do you see them going here?
I think looking at the board, it's a lot of skill position guys. I think maybe they're looking at wide receiver here. It's hard to tell. I think teams can go a lot of ways. And Saturday, the round one of the draft, it was definitely a lot of surprise picks. So, maybe St. Louis has something up their sleeve tonight as well.
So, what was your biggest surprise from Saturday? What just totally caught you off guard, other than Ray screaming like a wild banshee?
For me personally, being the GM, I mean, getting Jet Zero at 8 where we got him, we were thrilled that he fell to us. So I think for me personally, that was my big night one, was Jet Zero coming to Queen City.
Yeah. I think Jet Zero going to Queen City was a big surprise to everybody, but mainly because of the position of fullback.
Yeah.
It's a high value fullback.
Well, we actually put a lot of research in the off season, and I think kind of tipping our hand a little bit by that pick, but we believe in the guy, and with some of the running back archetype, some of the things, the limitations that are there, we kind of wanted to test something else out. With where we are with our signings that have been announced, I can't really talk a whole lot about everything else, but again, Jet Zero to Queen City, look out for this guy. He's something special.
All right, well, let's steer it back towards St. Louis. Ray, we saw quite a few positions getting drafted on Saturday while we were live out of Woburn, Massachusetts. A lot of defense. There were 6 defensive ends taken. A few people on offense, but here we are at the beginning of round 2. Where do you see St. Louis going?
Well, if there aren't about 30 or 40 fullbacks drafted tonight, I'm gonna be really disappointed. So that's my first. But looking at who the Gladiators have, it's kind of hard to tell where they're gonna be going. And again, I speculating right here in front of Colin seems slightly uncouth. But looking once again, they've only got one tight end. Perhaps it's once again time to bring another tight end. But
it could be. One's really all you
I
need,
know they've
though,
got
Ray.
Pickler. Well, that with Mexico City, yes, absolutely. There's no
All
falsehood to that.
right.
But
You said it
maybe they
earlier.
want to pick up another weapon on the offense to help him out. So
You can never have too many blockers as a running back, though, Ray. A couple of tight ends, fullback. We just got a shiny new fullback in Phoenix Jones in Mexico City. Looking forward to playing with Mr. Jones, and it was nice meeting him live at the draft show. But so here we go. We get
the guys have just done a lot of homework. Shout out to both Dwayne and Gerald for just putting in the homework, and shout out to our cornerback Drew. Really, just he organized everything in this giant to keep it all organized. Helps keep all of us sane.
All right. Apparently, our draft pick is in, but also the dramatic music is very loud, is what I'm seeing in the Twitch chat. So hopefully, our producer can turn down the dramatic music a little bit. But without further ado, the St. Louis Gladiators selection is in. Let me turn it back over to the commissioner at the podium to make the announcement.
Just making sure y'all are awake.
You woke him up.
I did. With the 21st pick in the SFL Winter 2020 draft, the St. Louis Gladiators select Chase Earl, wide receiver. The 22nd pick, which I need a board in front of me. You're on the clock. That's Carolina.
Carolina is indeed on the clock. Thank you, Cam. So Chase Earl is the selection. Colin, you're here with us. May as well be the man to break this one down for us. Can you tell us about Chase Earl and why that was your guy?
Well, the value was obviously there. It's a near value of what we want. It's kind of an odd role to take the third wide receiver role at a guy who's so high, but considering we had those positions filled, the fact that Chase was the guy willing to go ahead and take the role as the third wide receiver, who by default will be the punt and kick returner as well. You know, is a really good fit for us, and he interviewed well in the pre-draft process. The interactions with Gerald and Dwayne were all complimentary of Mr. Earl. So I'm just glad he was.
And it gives you a another weapon for Johnny Pickler, your first round pick. And a quarterback can never have too many weapons to throw to. Speaking of weapons to throw to, Robert Garrett Jr., we haven't spoken with you yet tonight outside the introduction. What do you think first pick of the second round is an offensive weapon? Not a tight end, but I mean, no pick is perfect unless it is, but I digress. It's an offensive weapon at least. What do you think?
Yeah, it kind of seemed that it might go that way. Just like you said, Johnny Pickler gets another weapon, and I think that's something Colin and the St. Louis guys probably want to do is build a high-powered offense behind their rookie quarterback, something that can really jumpstart him and help him out along the way.
Absolutely. So Carolina is now on the clock. Their needs are wide receiver and cornerback. So a little bit of offense and defense. And if I can find their list, there they go. They have two positions left open on their roster. First round pick was defensive end Riley Combs. And they already have, quite a full roster. A lot of people at many positions. Mr. Steven Hacker, where do you see them going? Are they going to select that wide receiver here, especially now that one is already off the board? Are you going to go defense, round that out, or a different direction?
Well, as I look, I'm looking at my board, and I'm trying to place who I think they would take. And I'm not sure here again. I felt like I had the position right with St. Louis, but for Carolina, I'm not sure. Again, I'm looking at kind of at value, and at least on my board, what I have these guys here at the top, what I have them playing, and it's potentially cornerback. If Carolina wants that conventional build, they could grab a corner here and help themselves out.
Absolutely. A couple minutes left on the clock, about 2.5 minutes left for Carolina with their selection. Ray, what are you thinking? Where would you go if you had this Skyhawks roster? What are you going to fill out here in the beginning of the second round?
So if I was in charge of the roster, I would shock the league and choose a second kicker and absolutely just gobsmack everyone. But since I'm not in charge of the roster,
you want nothing but drama, huh? Just two kickers.
I'm chaotic good. It's how I'm aligned and it's how I roll. But with so many people already signed to the Seahawks and they're pushing up against that cap space, looking at how they did last year, I think they're gonna add again. We're gonna see a trend here. Something to help out their first round pick in Riley Combs. So I'm going to say they're going defense on this one.
And if they do select somebody in the secondary, having that rookie defensive end to help create some pass rush, maybe make the quarterback throw it a little bit quick, a new corner could end up benefiting from that. So
don't forget they have two highly underrated defensive tackles in Phil Hall and Christopher Cologne.
It's true.
Yes.
Great point.
Don't get enough love up front. So with Cone, the first round pick, that build should be good. They have a good start to their front seven. But I do agree with Steven. I do think they will go a second cornerback. As far as the person goes, I will leave that up to chance.
Well, we'll find out in just a moment as the pick is in. Let me send it back to Cam to make the announcement.
With the 22nd pick of the SFL Winter 2020 Rookie Draft, the Carolina Skyhawks select Davidson Joseph, cornerback, Daytona Beach, Florida. Arizona, you're on the clock.
All right. Davidson Joseph is the 22nd pick in the draft, going to the Carolina Skyhawks. I really like this guy. Colin, this is one of our fellow broadcasters by a different name. Can you break down this Davidson Joseph selection? What do you think?
You know, I met the guy personally at the last convention. He's a good locker room guy for Carolina. He'll be a good bag. It'll be interesting to see where they're able to sign him at, because I'm looking at the cap space here. It is a lot. It's over 1,100 at this point without Mr. Joseph's value being calculated. So it'll be really interesting to see how the front office sort of manages their way around this tight situation.
Well, no matter how they use him, the one thing I'm just glad about is that Andy Hamilton couldn't get his hands on him. He's got enough of my broadcast team on his roster, far too much, in fact. So let's be happy for me that that wasn't the case. I love the off the field note for Davidson Joseph, opera singer. I've been trying for 2 seasons now to get him to record a new intro for our SFL games, and I think season 14 just might be the season for that. Get a nice maybe how about this, something where we have like Davidson Joseph belting out opera and Ray Bentley breakdancing to the song. Ray, what do you think? Is that something we could set up?
Are you presupposing that I have any rhythm whatsoever? Because that's a dangerous thing to do.
That's the beauty of it. You don't need the rhythm. It's just the fact that you're there alone is enough to just make it something beautiful. So
All right.
with that, anyhow, moving on back to something normal. The Arizona Scorpions are now on the clock. They need a wide receiver. They need a kicker. Ray, you wanted Carolina to draft a second kicker. What do you think? Maybe they just draft their one and only kicker right now.
Well, the wild thing is they drafted Mark Mello, and I don't know if you remember during the draft, we were not visible when this happened, but I threw my arms up into the air because I had forgotten that Eddie is defensive minded and wasn't going to draft a kicker in the first round. So I would love to see a kicker go here. And again, as far as who it could be, that's a dangerous ask to make, but I think, second round with the high value on the board. I mean, we've seen on our own team with Cole Varner how good a good kicker can go. So I think I'm going with that.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to mention. I mean, being on the Mexico City Aztecs with Cole Varner, you and I have both personally witnessed the importance of having a good kicker on the team. I mean, I'm pretty sure Cole can kick it from our own 20, if I'm not mistaken.
He's
Yeah.
probably able to kick the moon out of orbit at this point. So
Kick power is about 312, I think, is what it was last measured at.
Which by far is farther than Ray could have.
Oh yeah. If Ray tried to kick a ball, he'd pull a hamstring and he'd be out for the season. So let's just let him
pull a
stick to
hamstring
this.
thinking about it.
That may get him to start breakdancing.
Yeah, or just breaking in general.
So,
So the Scorpions in their first season, Eddie Gage is trying to shape this team around his own vision. They have a tight end, corner, running back, linebacker, defensive end, defensive tackle, pair of wide receivers, another linebacker, another corner, quarterback, another corner, strong safety, free safety, defensive end. I mean, most of the positions I just rattled off are all defense. It'd be interesting to see what they select, and it looks like that pick is in. So let's go ahead and find out right now who it is. Cameron Irvine, who'd they pick?
With the 23rd pick in the SFL Winter 2020 Rookie Draft, the Arizona Scorpions select Alex Constantine, defensive tackle, Washington, D.C. Pick 24. That's you, Charleston. You're on the clock.
All right, Charleston's on the clock. Alex Constantine is the selection for Arizona, a defensive tackle. So, Robert, are you surprised by this, or is this just kind of flowing right along with what Eddie does?
I mean, believe it or not, I was thinking to myself while we were talking about Arizona that, it wouldn't be a surprise if Eddie picked another defensive guy. Personally, I was thinking he might go towards another linebacker, but I mean, you got four players all on the defensive line, and that's just going to be a hard thing to defend for offensive guys.
Yeah, we've seen teams in the past. Colin, I know you guys have gone up against some Tallahassee using those four
Oh, yeah.
feared defensive linemen. What's it like trying to game plan going against a stout defensive line with four-star players on it?
It's very hard because there's no discernible weaknesses front. Usually, if teams have two defensive linemen or even three defensive linemen, at least you're going to get a positive matchup in one of them. But with the four, especially considering how Eddie's mind works defensively, it's going to be a real challenge for teams to try and game plan for that front. We've seen Chad Tackle get a lot of sacks, a lot of TFLs, engage defense in Houston. So Constantine found himself the perfect spot to land.
Absolutely. And this is a guy that, out in the real world, he played Pee Wee football for a couple of years, won a district title. So, knows a lot about the game. I'm sure he'll be able to bring a lot to the team. Ray is a running back trying to run through a line where there's four defensive linemen. That's got to be a little scary.
Well, that's why you're here, Mike. You help block for me.
To block, yeah.
It's,
I'm
and
just
especially
basically a
with
glorified offensive tackle, aren't I? That's all you think of me.
Phoenix. Well, no, it's so the funny thing is, the pick does not at all surprise me. It might hurt my heart that it's not a kicker. But I mean, what else does Eddie Gage do best but defense? And so this lines up perfectly with what I think Eddie has in store for Arizona. And personally, as someone that will see you get pancaked before I do, it terrifies me. But hopefully we won't have to deal with it too much.
And I just want to address a nasty rumor. Andy Hamilton says Ray ain't on camera because he's fully nude. Is it true or false, or can you not comment?
So fully does that? I've got headphones and glasses.
So
does that
it's not.
a
You're right. It's not a
ring?
true
I'm sure he's
Yeah,
got his
so-
socks on too.
At least one.
Tube socks? Are they tube
All right.
socks?
Reining this back in, I should have never asked. So Charleston Predators on the clock. Steven, their team needs wide receiver and defensive tackle. Any particular direction you see them going with this pick, or they're going to stick to one of those needs? They're going to go somewhere else. What are you thinking?
Well, looking over at their cap and who they have signed so far, it wouldn't surprise me to see a defensive lineman go, or maybe a third wide receiver.
Well, we're about to find out as the pick is in and ready to be announced. Commissioner Cameron Irvine, take it away.
With the 24th pick in the SFL Winter 2020 Rookie Draft, the Charleston Predators select Yogi Barr, defensive tackle, Virginia. The 25th pick, Vancouver. You're on the clock.
Yogi Barr, the defensive tackle, is the pick. So they do indeed stick with their needs, and they pick that defensive tackle. Steven, we'll stay with you for right now. What do you think?
Not surprising. When I looked at who they had signed so far, I think that Yogi is a great add to this roster. In my time scouting him, I enjoyed all our conversations. I think that he's a good addition to their team. Now they just got to get him in there and show him the ropes, get him on his progressions, and I think he can make his impact felt.
The defensive end, Jeff Hollywood, was the only defensive lineman that was currently signed to the Predators. Adding Yogi Barr as a defensive tackle will definitely help free him up. A lot of teams, we just talked about one that has four defensive linemen. Colin, do you think that maybe jumping ahead a little bit, but we have another round. They'll be back on the clock again. Do you think they might even stick with defensive tackle or defensive end and continue to add to that defensive line, or is adding Yogi Bar, is that it? Now they can address other positions.
I don't know. It's really up to the team. And, offensively, times they didn't get production like you thought they would last year. Now they have a new tight end in Vinci, so that may help. Just having everybody year with the same system. People forget that this was relocated from Indianapolis and lost most of their players once they moved from Indianapolis. So now everybody kind of has something under their feet. But I think with the expanded rosters, I wouldn't be surprised if they went for another defensive lineman. I mean, St. Louis, we've run teams with two defensive ends and the defensive tackle. They might go with that arrangement.
Oh, remains to be seen. So Robert Garrett Jr. taking a look at the Vancouver Legion board here. Well, not the board there, who they signed. They've got some offensive weapons. They have 3 receivers, tight end. They've got the running back and quarterback. They also have quite a lot of people on defense. Their needs really at this point, kicker. They have 2 spots open, and that's really their only need. Do you think we might finally make Ray Bentley a happy guy and get a kicker, or you know what, maybe even a fullback? What do you think?
Yeah, I was personally wondering if there's going to be another fullback coming off the board here. I don't quite know that the Vancouver guys want to commit this pick to taking a kicker yet, since they have one more spot. As also, they only have 2 defensive linemen right now, 1 defensive end, 1 defensive tackle. So I was curious if we might see another defensive lineman come off the board here.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me either. During the first round, I can't remember exactly what point it was at, but I do remember Andy Hamilton, the owner of the Vancouver Legion, talking about, how just having 1 defensive end, or 1 defensive lineman was kind of a waste. 2 is obviously better, but the more the merrier. So that wouldn't surprise me at all either. Ray, what do you think Andy's going to do? It's hard to get inside that guy's head, but
It's
what do you
impossible to get in there. I real quick. I got to give a shout out to Yogi Bar. Congratulations. He's about 10 minutes away from me right now. We're
Oh,
both from
nice.
Virginia, so it's I got to say something about that. But as far as Andy goes, now that he knows I want a kicker, I fully expect him to do anything to
Anything but.
make me unhappy.
Yeah.
So he'll probably go with fullback at this point. But I've been about 25% so far. So
Yeah, and that's the beauty of these draft shows that we've been doing the past few seasons is 99% of the time all of our analysis is completely wrong
and
and they
right
go a
out the
completely
window.
different direction. Yeah. So it's basically us just kind of filling time until Cam comes back with complete nonsense is really what it ends up boiling down to. Now, it's not always that bad. Actually, when Andy was on the panel, I think it was last season, he actually got quite a few right, and he let you know it every single time that he was right. So,
But he did.
oh yeah, imagine that. So Colin, what do you think here for Vancouver? What's Andy up to right now?
Well, I agree with some of my fellow panelists' comments that it is too early to take it even in the second. They could go an extra defensive lineman. I think we're seeing as a trend. Once the roster expanded to 17, I think people saw an opportunity. You know, couple defensive linemen and 2 linebackers, 7. People are going to be a little hesitant to run.
Yeah, absolutely. 124 people watching the live draft show taking place right now. The second round underway here on the Simulation Football League Twitch page. Appreciate you all joining us for round 2, and I'm glad to be back here hosting it yet again, especially with this group of lovely analysts. I'm still a little disappointed that we couldn't get Ray on camera, but from what I hear after his big moment on stage, he's been camera shy ever since. Ray, I don't know what that's all.
It's terrifying. I can't go out in public anymore. I
Too many
couldn't go out in public before because of police orders, but let's just say.
Have you had fans approaching you after seeing you on television, and the paparazzi, is it getting to you? Or
It's once again, I'm so glad I have these glasses because the flash of the light bulbs, people trying to get pictures, the pins jammed in my face, please sign this. Oh, my son wants to be you when he grows up. Oh, please take my house. I it's nice. I like
Ray,
it.
Ray,
Keep giving me more
has
things.
anybody asked you to sign their baby?
Yes. At least 3 times during the show, which I'm trying to shut them out of the room, but they just won't stop.
the ladies just kept flowing in with babies in arms, asking Ray to sign.
Please sign
Bless them.
my baby.
Thank God the pick is in so that we can end this nonsense. Let's turn it back over to Commissioner Cameron Irvine and see if he fires us or continues on with the draft. Cam?
It's not my department. We'll just let you go, and we'll review the film later. With the 25th pick in the SFL Winter 2020 Rookie Draft, the Vancouver Legion select Ryan Cottle, offensive line. The 26th pick, that's Charleston again, in a trade from London. You're on the clock.
All right. Rylan Caudill is the pick. Our first offensive lineman drafted, I think, ever in the history of the SFL. Colin, am I right? First offensive lineman ever.
Yeah, first offensive lineman. And leave it to Andy to be a pioneer, to be the first one to say, I was the first. But given the amount of guys who are willing to play defensive line, as mentioned previously, it was only a matter of time before teams started stacking up on offensive linemen. It'd be interesting to see where they place this guy.
Yeah, I agree. And looking at the big board of rookies, you talk about the weeks banked and weeks missed, things like that. Basically building their value. Stephen, as you look over the list, you gotta scroll down a little ways to find Rylan Caudill, because you only had 9 weeks. As a GM, when you're looking at players, I talked about this in round 1, but since you weren't there, I'll ask you to kind of give me your opinion. Are you more interested in finding the people that have the most weeks banked, or are you looking for people based on their character, kind of a combination between the two? How do you pick a player?
I think the best way to answer it is both. For me, and I think for Queen City, we want to feel like, number one, that you fit into our organization, that that we're going to invest in you, and that we want a return on that investment. And then after that is kind of value at that point. Value is kind of the tipping point, I would say, in our eyes, on how we would determine, okay, hey, we like both of these guys. Okay, which one has more value? And then maybe position. Um, we have generally going into the season, we have a specific build that we're kind of looking to put out onto the field. So we want the players that we scout and the players that join our team to be engaged in the role that they have. So, we as prospects, be honest, if you're not interested in this position, don't play it.
Right.
And Queen City was one of the teams also. Congratulations to Vancouver and Ryland for getting drafted. But we were very interested in the offensive line as well. And guys seem unresponsive to it, and that's okay. But I think it will become evident watching the games that a lot of teams are going to use defensive pressure, and the front, the offensive line, they're going to need to help the quarterback keep him up on his feet so he can make those big plays. And I think once teams and once players see that, offensive line will become more of a thing in the SFL.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a flashy position. It's not a position that's really ever going to get their name called unless they make, I mean, one heck of a monster block. I mean, I'll put it this way, as a broadcaster, if I'm looking at a offensive lineman and they're able to keep, Alex Dominguez out of the backfield on a consistent basis, we'll probably go ahead and mention that. But, it'll be interesting to see what comes of that. And with that, our next pick is in. I didn't really get to talk about the fact too much that Charleston was back on the clock. They traded back into the second round earlier today to get this pick, giving the London Knights 2 picks in the third round. So we'll see what they selected here with this pick. We'll send it back over to the commissioner at the podium.
With the 26th pick in the SFL Winter 2020 rookie draft, the Charleston Predators select Joseph Sabolka, defensive tackle, pick 27. That's you, Queen City. You're on the clock.
All right, Steven, you might have something to go and do. So, if you need to make a phone call, go ahead, or if you just want to sit here, you're good.
I'm on point. We're already ready to go. So
sounds good. So let's see. Let's kick it back over to Robert. So Joseph Stabolka, defensive tackle, he was taken with that 26th pick. We didn't get to talk about it much. I mentioned it right before the pick was announced, but Carolina actually traded back into the second round to be able to take this player. What do you think?
When I seen they were back on the clock, I didn't necessarily expect them to go for another defensive tackle. Just being that they drafted another defensive tackle with the 24th pick. But I mean, you can't argue with the logic there. Again, strengthening that defensive line, and it's going to be hard for guys to run on these defensive lines now, and really put a pressure on the quarterbacks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also want to just stick to you for just a sec and get back to the selection of Rylan Caudill. As a fellow tight end, what are your thoughts with having some star offensive linemen? I mean, sometimes tight ends, let's face it, a lot of people think of us as just glorified blockers. Ray, kidding, Ray. I know you love us, but what do you think about having some star talented offensive linemen next to us out there on the line as well?
I don't think there's really a bad reason behind it. Not only are they helping you with your run blocking, but if you look at it realistically, they're protecting your quarterback, so they'll be able to get us the ball up the middle deep a little bit more often there.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So Ray Bentley, defensive tackle, is selected yet again. There's been several defensive linemen selected. We looked at the first round. I think we said there were 6 defensive ends, and if I remember right, was there any defensive tackles? No, it was all defensive ends
It
in
was
round
all
1.
defensive ends, yeah.
Yeah. Now so far we're only 6 picks in, and we've got 3 defensive tackles selected. So is round 2 the round of defensive tackles, you think?
I feel like this is the draft of the defense, period. I mean, it just feels pretty much like people need to stop the offensive player of the year, clearly.
That's
But
what I was going to follow up with. You stole it.
it's one of those things where, looking at how Charleston did last season, I think that's a really great draft pick for them, because if they can shore up that defense and start getting, points on the board, they might be taking that Tulsa playoff spot from them instead, like they could have last time. So I think it's a good choice. We'll see how it plays out. I'm interested to see what Allen's got up his sleeve.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. Um,
So, Colin, I wanted to kick it over to you. So, we were trying to get some information out of Hacker earlier, but he appears to be a steel trap. And either that or his parents just did not ever teach him how to share. One of the two. But their team needs right now, it's ridiculous. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, kicker, defensive tackle, and cornerback. Now, rumor has it that they've already got some of these positions locked up and they just haven't announced the picks yet. And Steven's not telling us squat. So what do you see Queen City doing here? Not really knowing what they've already got, could this be our first kicker? Steven did sound pretty confident that the guy that he wanted must still have been on the board. So, what do you think? What are they doing?
Well, to me, they don't have a quarterback unless they're filing away AJ Caswell in witness protection somewhere and waiting to bring him out. James Manzi is sitting right up there, right for the taking. That could be a spot quarterback that could be looking for in the second round.
Absolutely could be. We've only had one quarterback selected in this draft, and that was the very first pick of the draft, Mr. Johnny Pickler, who was on set with us. And since then, no more quarterbacks have been taken. James Manzi, the only player remaining on the big board with 16 weeks banked, had no weeks missed. So, could be James Manzi, could be somebody else. It just remains to be seen. So, yeah, Andy Hamilton in the chat says second fullback incoming. So, Steven, what do you think? Are you going to take another fullback here?
Andy is just being really, really funny right now. And Andy, I appreciate you, but no second.
So, any spoilers you can give us, or any little tidbits?
I can tell you that we submitted the.
Oh, good, you submitted your pick. Well, answer me this:
Look at my jersey.
Was your players that you wanted, was he still available, or did you have to make a switch, or do you not want to say?
We actually we evaluated our board. There was some guys out there that we wanted, but I think we went after the guy that made the biggest impact on us after our first.
Gotcha. All right. Well, the clock is at 0. Just waiting on the commish to give us the signal, and it looks like that signal has arrived. So, without further ado, the Queen City Corsairs selection is in. Cam, who is it?
With the 27th pick in the Winter 2020 SFL Rookie Draft, the Queen City Corsairs select Griffin King, offensive line. The 28th pick goes to Vegas. You're on the clock.
Griffin King, the offensive lineman. Congratulations to Mr. King. Steven, you saw Andy take a offensive lineman. Did it bum you that you weren't going to be able to be first?
Yes, 100%. Queen City, we wanted that, but Vancouver, they're a great franchise. Andy, in my mind, Andy thinks outside the box. He tries his best to make his organization a winning team, and I think that he took a good step by drafting himself an offensive lineman. But Griffin King to us, his eagerness to learn, his wanting to be involved, and some of the knowledge and the questions that he asked in some of our scouting sessions, specifically with our owner Eric Barkley, really impressed our organization. So we wanted to take a chance on him and see what he's made of. And I hope now that he's on our team, he's ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is your plan as an organization as far as using the offensive lineman? Is the goal to help open up the run game? Is it to, help protect your quarterback better? Or, obviously it could be a combination. What's the main goal? What are you hoping to get?
The main goal for us is having the offensive lineman, man. I mean, they can offer multiple things. I mean, they're involved every single play. So whether it's opening up a gap or keeping our quarterback on his feet, that's exactly what we want.
Well, here's a guy that competed in the national championship for mathletics. So you got yourself quite the smart player, it seems, and sure he'll be eager to help out your organization. Ray, another offensive lineman selected, and
better.
Yeah, what do you think? You gonna get Ramos on the horn? Mexico City sitting down there at pick 35. Do you want one of these shiny offensive linemen, or what do you think?
At this point, I mean, Ramos has given me a phone, and I keep calling it, but it says something like Flintstone's phone back at me, so I don't really know if it works. But having said that, absolutely, if we could give Matt Wilson more time in the pocket or a little more, holes for me, good God Almighty, I'm flabbergasted by the prospect of it.
Well, you got yourself a fullback to help block for you, so that it's not all up to me, I guess, anymore. If we could get an offensive lineman, it seems to be the hip thing to do here in the second round. We've had more
It,
offensive linemen taken than wide receivers, if you can believe that. So it's,
it,
Amazing.
it's
Oh, how the
absolutely
times have
it's the
changed.
year. It's the year of the fullback and the offensive lineman. Hashtag
absolutely.
year of the fullback.
And much to Ray's dismay, it's not the year of the kicker. We've had no kickers taken, which is
I
funny
swear.
because we've had I think a kicker taken in the first round of each of the last 3 drafts, if memory serves. It probably doesn't, but here we go with Las Vegas on the clock. They also have a need of kicker, wide receiver, defensive end, strong safety. Interesting to see what they will do. Looks like we don't really even have time to break down what they might do because their pick is in. So let's keep this thing rolling. Turn it back over to Cam to announce the pick.
With the 28th pick in the SFL Winter 2020 rookie draft, the Las Vegas Furies select Rob Ems, kicker, Corning, New York. The 29th pick, that's Sioux Falls. You're on the clock.
Rob Ems from Corning, New York, about an hour and a half from where I sit right now. Congratulations, Mr. Ems. And Ray, I would be remiss if I didn't turn it right over to you to break this one down.
I'm the giddiest child on Christmas morning ever. You guys are extremely lucky I have neighbors and can't scream. Congratulations, Mr. M's, on being the first kicker drafted for season 14. And, for a team that has Steven now with them, it's a tiny bit of a surprise, but I knew that Steven, he's out there, he's looking out for me. He wouldn't let me down. This is a great pick. God bless you, Steven.
Well,
Absolutely. And
Vegas
this is
does have a history of special teamers. We've seen kickers. They've had kicker and a punter at the same time. They've had just a kicker. It makes sense that Vegas would pick a kicker in this situation.
absolutely. So Ray, they've actually picked your 2 favorite positions thus far. They picked a fullback in round 1 and now a kicker in round 2. So, I think they're just trying to make sure that you're a happy boy. So,
please, more of that.
yeah, more kickers, more fullbacks.
Yes.
Great.
7 of
And
each.
Mike and Prota in the chat says Rob Ems has the Rob Ryan hair. I don't know if any of you saw his photo there, but
Low and low.
it's like a Rob Ryan doppelganger. So hopefully he's not offended by that, because I did tell him I was going to come down to Corning and meet up with him at some point, and I would hate to get assaulted on our first meeting. So a little surprising. Ray, you mentioned it, but Robert, I'll turn it over to you. I don't know, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the great Stephen Mollinex, but kind of an offensive guru and likes to do a lot of things on offense. But his first season with the team as the head coach, they select a fullback and now a kicker. Does that surprise you at all, knowing that he's an offensive guy?
Yeah, kind of. Just because, looking at their team needs still, there's a big opening there with not having a strong safety yet. I feel strong safety is kind of one of those important spots on the defense that you kind of need when you're playing a lot of pass heavy teams. And just to see them skip over that is kind of a surprise to me.
Yeah, I agree. So, congratulations, Mr. Ems. I look forward to meeting you down in Corning. The Sioux Falls Sparrows on the clock. Their team needs are listed as defensive tackle, and that's all. They have 2 open spots on the roster, defensive tackle being the biggest need. Colin, what do you think the Sparrows are going to do here?
Well, they went defensive, and defensive linemen operate packs, so they need to get him a buddy. I think a defensive tackle would be good here. Perhaps another end.
Yeah, 2 ends or a tackle. You mentioned James Kelly selected in the first round by the Sparrows. They could absolutely give him a partner, because like you said, having a buddy out there with him is really what could make all the difference. Steven, they do only have that one defensive end. A tackle, defensive tackle could certainly help, but they also have a kicker. They've got their quarterback, running back, a couple, 3 wide receivers, tight end. They've got them all. Do you think this could be another fullback or offensive lineman pick here?
I would not be surprised if they went lineman, but for whatever reason, my gut feeling when I think back on some of what Sioux Falls did last season and some of the formations that they came out in, they might actually be going after a tight end too. They might actually be going after a second tight end here. But that's if they want to stick with their same game plan and scheme that they rolled out last year. But that's a potential pick is tight end too.
Well, let's find out. The commissioner's at the podium. Cam, take it away.
With the 29th pick in the SFL Winter 2020 Rookie Draft, the Sioux Falls Sparrows select Jonathan Camp, defensive end. The 30th pick, that's you, Houston. You're on the clock.
All right, Jonathan Camp, congratulations. Welcome to the league. Colin, you hit the nail on the head getting a second defensive end, a buddy for James Kelly. Focus a little bit more on that. Why is it so important that they have a buddy, as you called it, on the defensive line?
Because it draws double teams. If you have one guy who's dominant and the other team goes into the game plan, we got to stop this guy. Then the other guy can get more one-on-one matchups, or it could be reversed, depending on how the other team wants to attack that defense. And, Sioux Falls has pretty good secondary play. AJ Levy is one of the best strong safeties this league has seen. And he coordinates the defense back. So getting some help in the front seven other than the linebacker, because they've run all 3 linebackers before. And they were an aggressive team when they had the 3 linebackers. They would blitz a lot of their guys, from the sides and up the middle. So this plays right into what I think they want to do.
Ray, another defensive end taken. It's going to make running harder and harder and harder as they keep, teams keep fortifying these defensive lines. And of course, we're seeing teams trying to counter that by signing fullbacks and offensive linemen. Do you think the league is just going to be, just that much more intense next season with all this additional star talent? What are you expecting to see on the field?
And if you think these rookies are going to be stopping all the star running backs and now all the 8,000 fullbacks that were signed in the first round of the draft, I got to get what you have, because it's frankly scary to me, honestly, as a running back. But it's I think it's a step in the right direction for a lot of teams. And looking at Sioux Falls, they especially, if they could just stop, even in the games we played with them last season, if they could stop 1 or 2 of those scores, if the ball bounces the other way, they might have been back in into the postseason too. So I like this pick for him, as much as in my heart I dislike it as a running back.
Well, it sounded like for a second you were kind of calling out the rookies, saying, "Yeah, they can't stop me."
They'll never stop Ray Bentley. That's
Okay.
That's
exactly
a promise
what he's
you can
saying.
take to the bank.
Rookies take note. Riley Combs, Mark Mello, Lee Adama. Oh my gosh. There are so many defensive linemen that have been taken so far, and Ray says, you can't stop all this. Is that basically the message to these rookies?
I will have a more formal message in a little while, but for now that's the first draft. Yes.
A prepared
Houston,
statement.
Yeah. Ray will be at the podium with his apology later on tonight.
Please don't hurt me.
Houston Hyenas are on the clock. About 2 minutes to go for them. Their needs are tight end, defensive end, outside linebacker, and kicker. Let's throw it back over to a fellow offensive lineman. That's all we are, Robert. We're just offensive
Pretty
linemen.
much.
We're just faster offensive linemen. Let's face the reality. But so, what do you think? Could Houston add a tight end to the roster? Or are they going to go a different direction?
I definitely think it's possible that they could, give Kentez a big target to hit on the stuff in the middle when all the other wide receivers are getting clogged up with the corners. But I also think it's very possible we see yet another defensive end taken here. Houston only having one defensive lineman, and as we've already established, they're better in pairs, and so I think that Houston's going to look at that and add on to that.
Yeah, so they have a quarterback, a running back, and 3 wide receivers. Potentially even a fullback selection could be here. We've seen offensive line already. There's not a lot really on the defensive side of the ball, and they're one of the teams that still have plenty of open roster spots. Steven, they've got 6 spots open. What are you thinking that Houston might do here with their pick?
Yeah, plenty of spots, plenty of cap. I look at it. Demond, in my mind, Demond he's a little bit of a risk taker too. I think he likes to make a statement and maybe have his own brand. Uh, maybe a second linebacker, just to kind of break the monotony of so many defensive linemen. I think he might want to get something a little bit different, just a little bit of Demond spice on it. You know what I mean? And so his secondary, defensive backs, that's pretty much locked up. Third wide receiver, pretty much locked up. I mean, it just depends on where he wants to go. But I think you're looking at the front 7 on the defensive side.
The Demond Spice. I love it. Let's
Oh
see what
yeah,
the Demond Spice is going to bring to the Hyenas as Cameron Irvine's at the podium to announce Houston's selection.
With the 30th pick in the SFL Winter 2020 rookie draft, the Houston Hyenas select Shane Easley, outside linebacker. Tulsa, the 31st pick is on the clock. Nice call, Steven.
Yeah, absolutely. Steven, we'll just stick with you since you just called that one. Shane Easley, outside linebacker. Congratulations. We are halfway through the second round. Steven, what do you think about this pick?
Easily is up there right now at the top of the board with his bank progressions. Me as a GM, I didn't have any interaction with him, but that doesn't mean that he's not a good prospect to pick. So again, I know Houston's a very storied franchise, and Demond takes very very good care of his players. So they're like a brotherhood there. So Easily found a good home and a good start for his.
And it will be interesting to see what Houston does defensively this season with Eddie Gage leaving the team to start his own franchise in the Arizona Scorpions. It kind of leaves a hole in the defensive game planning. Demond bringing in players that are filling the needs that he sees on defense, and I'm excited to see how that all comes together. Ray, what do you think about Shane Easley?
I think it's a great pick. Again, you basically just took all the words out of my mouth. So if you guys just want to roll it back about 10 seconds and repeat all that seriously, I'm going to be really interested to see and I don't have the schedule in front of me, but whichever week it is that the Scorpions and the Hyenas face off, because those two defenses I think are going to bring us some fireworks that are going to be real exciting. So I think it's a great pick. Shane Easley again's got a lot of value. I think he'll be a good boon to the Hyenas team.
Well, I have good news for you, Ray, because
Oh,
I know that you can at times be impatient when you want something. And
always.
well, yeah, I mean, let's face it, you're a man child, and that's not a shot. That's just a description. I
Thank you.
mean, that's accurate, right?
Yes, 100%.
So the good news is Arizona heads to Houston in week 1.
I said I wasn't going to scream, but you guys keep pushing me. You keep pushing me.
Arizona Scorpions head to Houston to face the Hyenas in week 1. It'll be a matchup that we get to see right out of the gate, and it should definitely be a good one. So the Tulsa Desperados are on the clock. Their needs: wide receiver, defensive tackle, and kicker. Could potentially see another kicker come off the board. Robert, what do you think they might do here?
I'm looking a lot at the wide receiver spot there. They've got two of them on their roster already, but a lot of times that third receiver is your quicker slot guy that does a lot of the just interesting stuff, and you can never go wrong there. And they got that kicker there. Ray might get to see a second kicker come off the board here.
Woo.
Absolutely. They got 5 open roster spots right now. Deacon Nickens is their new quarterback coming over in free agency, replacing Ashley Jackson, who went to join Eddie's new franchise in Arizona. Never could hurt getting an additional offensive weapon. They do have quite a bit of defense, couple of corners, defensive end, a couple of safeties, couple of linebackers. So they've got a little bit of everything. Steven, as a GM, where do you think they might go?
Looking at, again, they've got some room, flexibility as far as roster space, also flexibility with cap. Seems to be a good number there. Looking at it, again, this could be a front seven on the defensive side of the ball. From what I see, at least on my prospect board and my communications with these players, what they told me they want to play, there's a lot of good value players in the front seven on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that's where the Desperados go.
Let's find out. The pick is in. Cameron Irvine's at the podium to make the announcement.
With the 31st pick of the SFL Winter 2020 draft, the Tulsa Desperados select Jacob McCall, wide receiver, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Chicago, you're on the clock with the 32nd pick.
So their number one need is what's addressed. Jacob McCall, wide receiver, is the selection. Ray, what do you think about the pick of a receiver here, Mr. Jacob McCall?
No, I think it's a great pick. I know that he was. I mean, looking at the board, he was fairly high up. He had 11 weeks, and he fell around 2. But I think this is a good pickup by the Desperados. They'll have a pretty strong core of wide receivers with Corey Jones, Mike Osai. And please, I am so sorry if I just butchered either of those, but I think it's pretty good pick with Deacon Nickens under center.
Well, they were first, in passing last season. It looks like, according to our notes here. So, wanting to make sure that they continue that on with a new quarterback and do what they can. Having a receiver of his talents could definitely help them out. So Chicago on the clock. Shan fished out the fiddle again. He's playing away, trying to see what they can do next. Their needs are kicker, much to the joy of Ray Bentley, defensive tackle, and defensive end. Now, let's go back over to Robert. We've had quite a few defensive tackles and defensive ends, an astronomical number. If we counted it up, I bet it's half of everybody that's been selected as defensive linemen. Do you think that Chicago could continue in that trend and go with the defensive lineman here? They drafted Mike Improta, fullback, in the first round. Is defense what they're looking at for round 2?
Oh, I absolutely think defensive line is the direction they're going to go in this pick. Looking at their roster right now, they don't have a single defensive lineman, and I think the way the league is turning, the defensive linemen are an important thing to have, and so I think they're going to go out and get their first one.
Looking at the big board, is there anyone in particular you think they might be targeting, or could it go any number of different ways?
Yeah, I think it could go any number of different ways. We were talking earlier, and there's a lot of guys that want to play defensive line, and they have plenty of options.
So Ray, to Robert's point, a lot of guys wanting to play defensive line. Do you think people like Alex Dominguez, Big Sexy himself, is it, players like him, is that kind of what makes the defensive line position so appealing to these rookies? Seeing a guy like that and the amount of
Yeah.
pressure he can provide.
So it's funny you bring up Dominguez because he had a statistical anomaly of a season last year, considering he's usually eating quarterbacks alive day in and day out.
Yeah.
But having said that, that's what he's known for. That's why he's big and sexy. So I would say that, yeah, that's, people are seeing, as much as I hate to admit it, that sometimes defense really actually does win championships. Uh, so as much as us on the offense like to preen and boast and stroke our giant egos, I think I think these guys choosing to play defense it's not only a smart move, but it's a star making move if they pull it right. So I think it's a good idea. It's just it terrifies me once again as a running back.
It's just
Everything
gonna get
does, though, to be fair.
it's gonna get more and more difficult for you, Ray. So I think I heard Colin. Colin, have you returned to us?
Yes, yes, I returned.
All right, I can't see you, bud. Oh, flashes of Colin have appeared. All right, I didn't want to just leave you hanging if you weren't there. So, what do you think? What do you think Chicago's going to do here?
Well, defensive line seems to be a trend. Now Shan has never ran any of his defensive teams with line. But he's still gotten the ability to back quarterbacks from time to time and come up with timely. I wouldn't be surprised if they went one here. Taking a look at the cap space, they're under 1,000, so they still have room to potentially have a really good player in their front seven group to go with Hendershot and Craig.
We will find out what they are doing momentarily as the clock is ticking away. But Steven, I just got a message from Shan saying, "Send it to Steven." Do you know why he wants me to send it to you?
Yeah, I think so. I think Shan knows that I have some inside information on his team. Not necessarily that behind closed doors, but Shan and the Wildcats, I don't think they've ever had a defensive lineman, a star defensive lineman. So maybe they don't go with front seven. And I was looking here at the prospect board, and like the light bulb just went off in my head, and I think I know who they're going to go here, but I don't want to spoil it. I have a hunch, and I can't be right unless I say it. But I'm not going to spoil it. I think I figured it out.
Well, what position do you think they're taking?
I think they're going to go. It's going to be a defensive back.
Defensive back. All right, that's the prediction, and we'll send it back to you after we come back from Cam and see if your guess was right. Only you will know if you're lying, though. So I guess there's that. Cameron Irvine's at the podium to announce the Chicago Wildcats selection.
And one quick note before we get to that pick. Las Vegas has indicated that they have 2 signings remaining. They will not be rookies. They are returning veterans. So Vegas is foregoing their 37th pick. That moves London to the 40th pick, given the fact that they are 6 hours ahead and it's 2:15 in the morning. The league is not going to make London make that second round selection tonight as the 40th pick. So we will go to the 39th pick tonight, and London, who received that pick from Charleston, will start tomorrow's third round with the last pick of the second round, the 40th selection. So just some housekeeping notes there for everybody here towards the end of the draft. With the 32nd pick in the SFL Winter 2020 rookie draft, the Chicago Wildcats select Ron Hoff, free safety, Lansdale, Pennsylvania. The 33rd pick, that is, forgive me, Atlanta. You're on the clock.
All right. Ron Hoff is the pick. Gosh, you're like Nostradamus over there, Steven. Defensive back. I should have made you be more specific, though. Defensive back encompasses 3 positions. But
okay, so how I got there, right at the top of the big board, I look and I see a guy named Ron Hoff, who I have no interaction with, but I just kind of look over and I realize that he was a part of Chicago as a non-contract last season. And I don't know, just boom, light bulb went off, and I just thought, Chicago never has a defensive lineman. There's a guy here that's on the board, and why the heck not? So
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Just things started moving.
It just came to you like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. So free safety is the selection. Robert Garrett Jr. I don't think I've sent it over your way in a little while. So another defender taken as an offensive player. Are you surprised by all this defense, or is this something you kind of foresaw as the draft was approaching?
It's not necessarily surprising for me, just because a lot of the offensive positions, the teams tend to go for more established guys. Guys that they know they can count on, they can work with. Defensively, you can kind of piece it together a little easier than offense. Offense, if you don't have the right kind of tight end, I'll just go there because that's what I play. Then your offense isn't going to click right. But if you got a different style of free safety than what you're used to, you can figure out a way to plug them into that defense and make them special.
So, Ray, fun fact about Ron Hoff: he is the king of useless knowledge. What do you make of that?
Well, I think he's about to lose his crown to somebody else, or at least battle to the death for it.
Oh, to the death. Oh, wow.
Yes, that's how we do around these parts.
Virginia is
But
a rough
no.
town.
It's rough and tumble, let me tell you. But no, I congratulations to Mr. Hoff. And
It's a state, Mike,
again,
not a town.
Thank you.
Trust me,
I knew as soon as I said
living
it.
here,
Got
it
him.
can be both sometimes. But, well, goodness, I've lost my entire train of thought. Thank you. That was something else.
The commissioner needs to know that if he's not at the podium, he's not supposed to speak. But I digress. So just totally throws us off. But hey, he thrives on correcting every mistake that I make. So that's he gets a kick out of it.
You're rambling.
Mike, speaking. Whoa.
See? So anyway, Ray, go ahead.
Love you,
I
Mike.
was gonna say, speaking of get a kick, it looks like, and I could be terribly wrong because I am frequently, but it looks like Atlanta has the opportunity to make my dreams come true once again in this round, because it does not look like they have a kicker yet on their board.
Indeed, they do not have a kicker. So with Atlanta, they certainly have the need of a kicker. They could also use another defensive end. Looks like they have a pair of corners, one defensive tackle, free safety, fullback, couple of linebackers, quarterback, running back, strong safety, tight end, and 3 wide receivers. So, kicker could definitely be the selection. But Colin, you talked about it a lot earlier. They only have the one defensive lineman. Would you expect them to go with a kicker here, or would they add a buddy to the defensive line?
Well, the one guy they have is Jason Williams, a defensive tackle. He's been a really effective defensive tackle, but through the years, Mark Chisholm has been burned by the lack of a star. I know particularly a couple seasons ago, there was a Sioux Falls, of which they probably could have won the game. But then they made the kicker walk home after they left him off the team plane when he missed the field goal. So I wouldn't be surprised if they went kicker in this.
All right. Well, the pick is in. We will send it back to the podium where our incredibly rude commissioner awaits to make the announcement.
I deserve that, Mike, very much so. With the 33rd pick in the SFL Winter 2020 rookie draft, the Atlanta Swarm select Tim Cleland, defensive end, Severn, Maryland. The 34th pick, Florida. You're on the clock.
All right. Tim Cleland is the selection. Congratulations, Tim. Colin, I'll stick with you. They selected that defensive end to complement Mr. Williams. What do you think?
It's definitely a good it's definitely a good pick. Makes sense for them. Because you don't hear a lot of tandem defensive line being two tackles. It's normally a tackle and an end, or two ends and a tackle. So it was a good pick. It was a good pick, but I know there are some teams going to be upset.
So Ray, they did not make your dreams come true. They went with another defensive lineman. So not only do you not get the glory of being able to, be happy about another kicker being taken, but my gosh, another defensive lineman to try to knock you down.
Well, not to appropriate somebody else's work, but shot through the heart and they're to blame. Atlanta, I'll see you in your game.
Oh
Or
my.
our game. I messed it up. I worked so hard on that. But no,
Okay.
it's it's an interesting choice. I was gonna say Marcus led one hell of an offense last year, pardon me. But it was truly something else to see him turn it around and lead them into playoffs after such a drought. So I really did think that kicker would have given him just that little bit of the extra edge to put him over the top. But if it's stopping the other teams that they're going the route of, I can't shake my head at this one.
Yeah, still one more round to go. I would imagine that there's probably several teams that are going to be filling up their rosters by drafting kickers tomorrow night in the third round. Just taking a quick look over at the chat, Ramos Lynn does not appear impressed with your song. In fact, I think,
He shouldn't be impressed with much
yeah.
of anything I do.
And I'm pretty sure he thinks that you just embarrassed the entire Aztecs organization with that. But on a positive note, professional opera singer Michael Trujillo says that was beautiful. So
Thank you.
we do have
Thank
that.
you.
We do have that. So we'll stick with the professional there and say that was a thing of beauty. So Robert, going back to the little announcement there by Cam that Las Vegas is not going to be making their pick, and it brings London up into the second round. But Liam is probably sound asleep and doesn't want to make a pick now. I propose we can't end the second round early and then start tomorrow night with the second round again. So I think we just need to keep the show going all night long until 8 p.m. tomorrow. Do you think you're able to sit in here for about 24 hours?
Yeah, I think I could do it if I tried hard enough.
Hopefully somebody brings us snacks. That's all I can say. So let's see. Florida is on the clock now. Let's take a look at what their needs are: running back, kicker, and defensive tackle. They definitely have one of the premier defensive tackles in the league, and actually, he flipped back over to defensive end this season. He's gone kind of back and forth throughout his career. Just trying to sort this list so I can see it a little better. But yeah, basically, they already have defensive ends, Alex Dominguez, and they drafted in the first round Alessandro Tomaello. Steven, do you think they might go with a defensive tackle here, or are they going to go a different direction? Maybe make Ray happy and get a kicker.
You know, my gut says they're going to make Ray happy. But again, there's a lot of value right now in the defensive line and linebacker position. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the rest of this round go with defensive line.
Just more and more defensive linemen. One of you's got to get a count because I'm just curious. Steven, why don't you do that for us? Can count up how many defensive linemen total have been taken, because it's just an astronomical number so far. So, Colin, what do you see the Storm doing? They just moved down from Alaska to sunny Florida. I think Max wanted to enjoy some warmer temperatures on game day. What do you think they might do here with their second round pick?
Well, um, if you think about what the Storm like to do, they have really done the kick for a while. practically since their team started. I wouldn't be surprised if went out and got a kicker, but halfback is also a possibility for them.
Yeah. That's what I was kind of thinking there. And Ray, I was going to send it over to you. We'll send it to you after we get this pick. Running back could be the thing. They've got their fullback in J.W. Doyle. Running back and fullback is something they've ran in the past quite successfully. Let's turn it over to Cam at the podium to find out who this pick is.
More second round drama here because Vegas inherited that pick via a trade and will not use it. That trade is now voided by the league. The 37th pick will go back to Denver, who did not previously have a pick in this draft because they traded it away to a team that ultimately did not use it. So Denver gets the 37th pick, and then the two picks that Vegas would have had, 45th and 58th, will now go to Atlanta and Chicago if they need them at the end of the draft. So we'll recap all that mess after the show, but Denver is now pick 37. With the 34th pick in the SFL Winter 2020 draft, the Florida Storm select Marcus Agrippa, punter. The 35th pick, Mexico City, you're on the clock.
Marcus Agrippa, a punter. Ray, a punter.
All gonna make me lose my mind up in here.
Up in here.
Up in here. It's, I was about to go on a big, confident rant, as I usually do, about how I've seen Mighty asking that he wants a kicker. Please come see him if you're interested in doing that. And then he turns around once again. Somebody else is playing the fiddle music tonight. Shan, he's a competent fiddler, but I feel like my strings are being pulled particularly. But it's a great choice. It's Mighty likes to do something different a lot. I think every
and it's paid
season,
off.
and it's a really interesting choice, and I can't wait to see what he does with it.
Are you surprised, especially as a running back, to see a team without a running back draft a punter instead of a running back?
If it was anybody else, yes. But considering Mr. Paul's resume, I can't be surprised by anything he does. I know he's got a plan, and I've just got to trust in it, even if I'm not on his team.
A trio of back-to-back-to-back championships. I guess Max Paul can draft whoever he would like. I think he's earned that right, and
I agree.
Nobody can really question that because results are what speaks volumes. So, Robert Garrett Jr., what do you think of the selection of a punter here?
Yeah, I was pretty surprised by it just because, like we already said, there's an opening at running back and, um, the kicker and defensive tackle and all that. But, I'm sure just like the rest of us, we could all hear Ray internally screaming. And a punter will definitely be an interesting thing to watch.
Steven, Mexico City is on the clock, a team near and dear to mine and Ray's heart. So, if I let Ray talk about it, he'll just speak of all the glories of the Aztecs and never really get to a point, I fear. So we'll stick with you. And defensive tackle, defensive end, linebacker, we need some help on defense, it seems. We had a defensive tackle leave in free agency. Do you see, you said, well, you already said earlier that you think the rest of the draft is going to be defensive linemen. So is you sticking to that here?
A little shocked by the punter, but I'm still sticking by my guns on this one. I think defensive linemen guys really, really valuable. Shout out to your first round pick, Phoenix Jones. Great pick by your organization. He was a great guy, great super pick, but wasn't off my radar by any stretch of the imagination. With that being said, I think you guys are you're gonna look at probably defensive tackle again, and then maybe next round you're probably looking at an end.
Yeah, to make sure we get that pair, so you don't just have the one. And I think maybe that might have been one of the issues for the defense. Guapo Esteban was the only defensive lineman on the roster. So he was getting
He's
all
a
the
big
double
boy.
teams. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a big fella.
But
Uh,
a
you-
lot of work.
if you've ever seen him in real life, he's a big fella. But love you, Steven. Anyhow, he's gonna kill me the next time he sees me. So other than that, listen. He left the Aztecs for Las Vegas. If he wasn't expecting shots to be fired,
Burned that bridge.
So, Colin, what do you see the Mexico City Aztecs doing here? You agree with Stephen Hacker?
Yeah, I do agree. Defensive line are needed, and that does kind of seem to be a trend. Like they went with the lone, albeit a very big one, in Guapo Esteban, and I don't think it had quite the impact that Ramos was looking for. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a guy either way, just because that Ramos's background is a defensive guy, having been around for 1 year before I started my own team.
Quite a few players already on the Aztecs roster. 3 spots open. Have a trio of wide receivers, arguably the best tight end to ever play the game. Let's see, there's a couple of. Sorry, was that too obvious? Jeez. Pair of safeties. A one Jeffrey Daggs at safety, by the way. There's a linebacker, a Nick Daggs. It's like a whole Daggs family here. Jeez. Running back Ray Bentley is on the team. Ray, what do you think Ramos is doing here?
Well, frankly, again, I have no idea because I've just found out that Flintstone phone's not connected to anything.
It's not. It's a toy, Ray. We couldn't trust you with the real phone.
I've been talking to someone named Fred this entire time, as it turns out.
He's a good guy.
With Ramos, I try to stay out of the business side of things, so I really can't wait to stick my foot in my mouth and say that maybe he's even going to do something as crazy as, say, Andy and who's that guy on Queen City, Steven or
that
whatever.
guy.
Yeah,
That
he's
Steven
a
fella.
nut. Anyway, with Ramos, I'm not sure. I know he's got to fill the hole that Guapo left, but it's hard to tell.
I
Well,
actually
we'll
agree
find
with
out.
Ray. I think it might be an offensive lineman.
We will find out momentarily as Cameron Irvine's at the podium ready to announce the Aztec selection.
With the 35th pick in the Winter 2020 SFL Rookie Draft, the Mexico City Aztecs select Brock Lee, defensive end. The 36th pick is Seattle's. The Tyrants are on the clock.
Brock Lee, defensive end. Welcome to the league. Welcome to the Aztecs, Mr. Brock Lee. Steven, so far, you were right there. Defensive end, still a defensive lineman being taken, so you're not surprised. But what's your reaction to Brock Lee specifically?
Right here at this position where you guys picked him up, his banked value, man. I think, again, 2 good picks for Mexico City. I definitely think you filled a need, and with his banked value there, I don't think he's going to break the bank on your cap. So I applaud your selection. Just maybe need to get a little less Mexico City representation on this next go round. Just my opinion.
No, you can never have too many Aztecs. Ray, we talked about that a little earlier. Mexico City's been one of the most represented organizations at these events.
Absolutely.
Since the event last summer, and
well, we've got you, and then my ego counts for at least 6 people.
At least.
So
At least.
But no, welcome to the team, broccoli. You're absolutely my favorite vegetable, whether you're raw or cooked. And I can't wait for you to be cooking opposing teams as well. So go ahead and steam them. I'm gonna find some kind of broccoli pun that's not too cheesy, and is not that one to work on here.
My goodness, I need the ability to like mute people. Actually, I think I don't have that ability. Cam took away all my powers. I have no ability to mute the puns. But at least Andy Hamilton's not on the panel. Otherwise, it would just be a whole night of puns. So we'll stick with the few that you bring to the table. So Robert, what do you think of Mexico City's selection?
Yeah, we've said it time and time again. You can't go wrong with defensive line in this draft, and there's an overabundance of guys waiting. So, it was a good pick for sure. And I think when you see a player like Ray Bentley all the time, that you got to prepare for a run game, and one of the best ways to do it is defensive line.
So the Seattle Tyrants are on the clock. They have a couple of minutes to go here. Taking a look at their roster, they have one position open, and their need is listed as kicker. They have a quarterback, running back, tight end, 3 wide receivers. They got strong safety, a couple of free safeties, couple of linebackers, 3 defensive ends, 2 corners. Colin, it looks like they have one of the most well-rounded teams out there. Do you think completing it with kicker is what they do here, or are they going to go with something else, maybe another defensive tackle to get 4 on the front line?
Kicker does make sense because we've seen a lot of non-contracts be unreliable, to say the least. And it also helps in your offense because they don't have to go as which makes it harder as speaking from a DB perspective to try and stop people, because all of a sudden you don't have that extra cushion that you. So kicker would make sense, but
We'll
given
find
that
out.
people,
Yeah, we will find out if Ray is going to get yet another special teamer off the board, or if it's going to be something else, as Cameron Irvine's at the podium ready to announce Seattle's selection.
With the 36th pick in the SFL Winter 2020 rookie draft, the Seattle Tyrants select Whistle Jones, kicker, Austin, Texas. The Denver Nightwings are on the clock with the 37th pick after the voided trade with Vegas.
All right, Whistle Jones, the kicker. Ray, your thoughts?
Because of my oddly shaped skull, I actually cannot whistle in appreciation for this draft. So unfortunately, I will just have to do a minor clap and say, Crash, you're my boy. Thank you for helping me out and drafting another kicker, making my night. I think it's a great pick. I think Seattle was a team that, last season, boy, there were some thrillers, and especially with those playoff games, with those last plays that they got through. I think this is a great pick to help them just kind of pad that cushion a little more, so we don't all have to have our hearts in our throats when the ball's in the air heading to Mason Kirby. So
Yeah, absolutely, some big plays, in the championship game, along with Denver Nightwings, who are on the clock now, trying to get that one missing piece to help push them over the top next season. Robert, what do you think about the selection of a kicker? Is that, if you had that roster that I rambled off there for the Tyrants, would you have wanted to round it out with a kicker, or would you have gone with another defensive lineman, or maybe something else?
Yeah, the kicker was definitely the best move. The other two things I was thinking was maybe taking a third corner or even another linebacker, just to strengthen that defense even more if you want to do a nickel or something like that. But again, kickers do score points, and in the end, you have to have the most points to win. So
Absolutely. So, Stephen Hacker, you look like you're deep in thought. You've been dubbed Nostradamus of the draft.
Hey, yeah, I
You
like it.
have tight end Avery Allen, linebacker Mike Sawchuk, and strong safety Nicholas Warner are the losses from the team for the champion Denver Nightwings. Are they going to replace one of those positions, or are you still sticking to your defensive line prediction, even though, by the way, you got it wrong on the last pick?
Well, the special teams, that's a hard one to predict. I think that's a team preference. Again, with some of the guys I had on my board, and with the research and scouting that I did, it just seemed like there was a lot of those out. So I'm actually happy that the special teams are getting their run as well. But on to the Nightwings, Denver. I think it really, for me, I haven't talked to Jeremy in a little bit, so I don't know how much of the reins he's let go of for Denver. But if Jeremy still has his hands on that thing and is really, trying to form that, I would say he's probably trying to get an offensive lineman too. I think in some of our conversations in the past, he brought that up. When are they going to come to the league? And so I think maybe some of the shine has worn off because Vancouver and Queen City got there, but Sawchuk I know is a big part of their defense. They could have an idea in mind of how to replace him. Uh, so linebacker wouldn't surprise me, but neither would offensive lineman.
Well, it looks like the pick is in, so we will wait no longer. I'm going to guess they replaced their tight end here. I usually don't make a guess while I'm hosting, but
It's not a bad guess.
I'm feeling that they need to replace Avery Allen. But Commissioner Cameron Irvine will let us know here in a second. He's at the podium to make the Nightwing selection.
Sometimes tight ends can just will things into existence. With the 37th pick in the SFL Winter 2020 rookie draft, the Denver Nightwings select Jeremy Mosley, tight end, Jacksonville, Florida. St. Louis with the 38th pick. You're on the clock.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Now the draft's getting
Nostradamus.
exciting. Now it's getting exciting. Jeremy Mosley, welcome to the League of Tight Ends. Congratulations on being drafted. Robert Garrett Jr., what do you think about the Nightwings pick?
I was actually very confident going into their pick that they were taking a tight end, only because when I was still testing the free agent market, I talked to Jeremy a little bit, and he had told me if I wasn't interested, they were probably just going to look late rounds in the draft and try to pick up a guy there. So when I seen the opportunity and that they were up, I just had a really strong feeling that they were going there.
Yeah, well, they indeed did. So they have replaced the tight end on their roster, and they'll keep on rolling to try to get another championship. Colin, what do you think about the selection of tight end for the Nightwings?
It makes perfect sense. Given the impact that Avery Allen had with Josh Miller, and then him kind of retired, just shockingly, really. But he gets to go out with a ring. So good for him. Um, they obviously had a big spot to fill. It's a good pick by Jeremy Vega and his front office staff.
Absolutely, arguably the greatest selection here in the second round. I don't know if anybody could argue that one. We've seen a lot of players taken. So.
There were 2 kickers taken, my friend.
And a punter.
And a punter. Yeah, and a punter. Don't forget Marcus Agrippa, punter, Florida. So yeah, there's been a whole bunch of fun stuff taken. So St. Louis back on the clock, and then we have Carolina and Arizona to round things out here in the second round. I'm so happy that we'll be able to actually conclude the second round. It was just going to be so weird if we had to resume the second round to start tomorrow night. It would have felt wrong. So tight end is taken for the Nightwings. We have St. Louis back on the clock. Taking a look at St. Louis's selections so far in this draft, they started off with Johnny Pickler, quarterback, with the number 1 overall pick. Later on, they selected Chase Earl, a wide receiver, as a weapon for Mr. Pickler to throw to. And now they are back on the clock again. So, Ray, what do you think they will do here? Wide receiver was a team need, but they addressed that early on. Maybe they add another one, or do they go kicker, defensive end, inside linebacker? Those are still needs listed.
Well, it's looking like they've got. Oh, I did my math wrong. They do only have 2 wide receivers so far. But they drafted their third just now, so I'm not sure if they're gonna go 4, but maybe it is a night for you, Mike, and they'll go another tight end. I think that'd be a very interesting look coming out of St. Louis, especially with I believe it's Cody Scott.
They do indeed have
taking up
Cody Scott.
the offensive coaching duties. So I get with Colin right here. I don't quite want to jam my foot in my mouth, but I think it would be interesting to see something like that come together out of the Gateway City.
Well, we will find out momentarily. Cameron Irvine is at the podium to announce the Gladiators' third selection in this draft.
By the way, Mike, you like my jacket?
I love your jacket, Cam.
What a great jacket. It's like the best
I wanted
jacket
to
I've
see
ever
that
owned.
jacket on Saturday. What gives?
Big shout
Where do you
out
get that jacket at?
Don't start with me, Mark. This is Sector 6. Huge props, Sector 6. Sector6apparel.com, or you can go to simulationfl.net and go to our shop page. Hacker's wearing a Corsair jersey at the moment. And Mike, did they do your suit too? They didn't do your suit, did they?
They did not. No.
Okay, all right. Just making sure.
But I bet you wish that they did, because their material is so soft.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Just wait till you get a jacket. This thing's unbelievable. Anyway, with the 38th pick in the SFL Winter 2020 rookie draft, the St. Louis Gladiators select Mark Gronick, outside linebacker, Elmhurst, Illinois. The Carolina Skyhawks back on the clock with the 39th pick.
All right, Mark Gronick, congratulations on being drafted and welcome to the league. He is the third selection for the St. Louis Gladiators in this draft, this time going defense. Colin, tell us about Mark Gronick and how you plan to use him at linebacker. What do you expect from him?
Well, Mark Gronick is a guy who impressed us a lot. He's actually related to our first draft pick, John Pickler. He's Johnny's stepbrother, I believe.
Okay.
So, just keeping it in the family. And of course, we have Cheeseburger Rivers moving from defensive end to line. We saw the benefits, the lack of benefits of having anybody at 7. Having no linebackers in the front 7. Trying to say, boy, sounded like I had a bunch of marbles in my mouth first.
We were wondering what you were doing, but we were going to let you roll with it.
But with this pick and the move of Rivers from defensive end, we shore up what had been a weakness into somewhat of a show.
All right. Well, filling out the roster quite well. There's 3 open positions left after tonight's draft, so it'll be interesting to see where you guys go from here in round 3 and to finish up your team. Fun fact about Mark Gronick, expert breakfast sandwich maker. Ray, thoughts on that?
I have met John Pickler. Now I must meet his brother-in-law. Oh my goodness! He didn't tell me that when we were in Boston together.
He did not. No, I mean the breakfast sandwich prowess of the family must be impressive.
I would have moved him up Ramos's draft board for sure. I would have gotten right on that Flintstone phone.
we need to be well fed on game day, and this man can make a monster breakfast sandwich. That's these are important things. That's why the league went through the painstaking trouble of collecting these fun facts. Otherwise, you would have never known about the breakfast sandwich. So good stuff to know. Carolina is back on the clock. Robert, where do you think Carolina is going to go here? Just taking a look, they drafted a cornerback earlier, David Joseph, one heck of a cornerback, by the way, one heck of a guy. And then earlier on in round 1, they went with Riley Combs, defensive end. So they've gone defense. Did they go offense here? Their needs at this point are wide receiver. So do they add to a wide receiver to improve this offense, or what do you think?
They could possibly add to wide receiver, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, just the way the draft has gone, if they draft another defensive end tonight to pair with Riley Combs, and then they got their defensive tackles and Phil Hall and Chris Cologne. I mean, that defensive line would just be hard to stop from the get-go, and a team that struggled last year, that could really set them forward.
So, Steven, Robert thinks that they might go defensive line. You said earlier on that you thought potentially the defensive line was going to be addressed for the rest of the draft. They drafted defensive end Riley Combs with the second pick in the first round. And then they already have Phil Hall, Chris Cologne. Do they go with 4 defensive linemen now and stick to your earlier prediction, or are you changing it up?
I'd like to stick to my guns and say, man, it's going to be defensive linemen. But I think Carolina has a need, and I think that they'll try to take it. Maybe looking at the second.
All right. Well, they have a matter of about a minute left on the clock to make their selection, and then we will find out what they're going to do. Arizona chomping at the bit to get back on the clock, and it looks like the time for that has arrived as the pick is in. We'll turn it back over to Cam and his super sexy coat at the podium to announce the Skyhawks selection.
Apparently, my hair is attracting attention in the chat, so I'm a little self-conscious about that now. With the 39th pick in the SFL Winter 2020 Rookie Draft, oh, this is a great one. The Carolina Skyhawks select Flash Furman, wide receiver, Long Island, New York. And ladies and gentlemen, his photo on his bio is from kindergarten because I asked for the best picture of himself. And so he said that was the one. So congrats, Flash. 40th pick, last pick of the second round, Arizona. You're on the clock.
Flash Furman is the selection, and his kindergarten photo is going to be on your screen momentarily. So the wide receiver is taken. And Ray, I have a question. Do you think that that's the best photo that he has, or is that actually his current photo? And pump fake, Flash Furman is a kindergartner.
You just threw a curveball at me that I was not expecting, and I like it very much. But as someone that submitted a photograph of themselves as a 3-year-old for this very self-same broadcast before going, oh wait, there's this one. I do agree with the idea that sometimes cuter is better.
So the selection is Flash Furman. Says he's an X-ray tech, so I'm going to assume not a kindergartner at this point. Diehard Philadelphia Eagles fan, and I guess man after my father's own heart. He's a Eagles fan as well. There's a lot of them out there. So Ray, what do you think about the selection of wide receiver here?
I think it's a good selection for Carolina. Again, last season they had some really rough luck with some of the things that happened to them. Everyone remembers Harish dying at the convention, but looking at some of their games, man, they were so close in so many of them, and others less so. So I think getting a third wide receiver in there to help get some more points on the board, that's absolutely going to help out, Sully and the whole squad. So I think it's a really good selection for Carolina overall.
Robert, your thoughts on Flash Furman, the wide receiver selected for the Carolina Skyhawks? What do you think about this pick?
I think it's a really good pick for the Skyhawks. As I said earlier, that third receiver is usually somebody you can do a lot with, jet sweeps and things like that, just because they're oftentimes kind of the slot receiver. It's kind of disappointing as a tight end. More receivers take the catches away from us, but sometimes you got to sacrifice.
Absolutely. So, Colin, Arizona is back on the clock. It says that their team needs are wide receiver and kicker, but as you and I both are well aware, Eddie Gage, the defensive guru that he is, I believe, what was the quote that he said during round one? Something to the effect of offense sells tickets, but defense wins championships, something along those lines. He went with Mark Mello, defensive end, in the first round, and then in the second round, he goes with Alex Constantine, defensive tackle. So defensive line. Colin, do you think that Eddie knows that he can draft offensive players? I mean, do you think anyone told him he can pick offense?
Well, I think he'll pick offense by a distance. and he'll go with kicker. And I'll tell you why. A defensive guy like Eddie will like having kickers because having a kicker on his roster because with kickoffs, stuff can go farther into the end zone, which backs up your opponents, which helps up your defense. And they're an aid to an offense. And in particular, it'll be Kanye Rockefeller who will be calling as the offensive coordinator. I believe this is the first time he's done so, although he has some front office experience, the Desperados, from beforehand. So I just think it's kicker. That's what my
Could
guy
be.
tells me.
Could be. Mike Improta in the chat says even if Eddie doesn't have any more defensive positions left, he's still going to take another player on defense. He could be right, but he announced on the live television in the first round that he's a Patriots fan. So clearly he doesn't really know what he's thinking. So Steven, is it going to be another defensive lineman here?
Let's see. No, it will not.
So your prediction that it was going to be all defensive line, you were right at pick 35 and then have been wrong since, and now you're reneging on.
Well, see, I think I influenced the draft, just with my Nostradamus ways, and everybody, oh, we can't let Hacker know what our pick is, so we're just going to start throwing stuff out. I am surprised as well that Arizona hasn't given Ashley Jackson a couple more weapons. So
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised to see their slot receiver come into play here. The value is right. Looking at their cap, I think that's about the right spot for them to get that third receiver. So I think it's open for them if they want it. But we'll see what Eddie Gage decides to do.
We'll see what he does. The final pick in the second round is in. One last time, we will turn it over to Cameron Irvine at the podium to make the final announcement of the night.
And a reminder to everyone out there watching the rookie draft tonight that the third and final round of the rookie draft is tomorrow. Same time, same place here on Twitch. And we'll see some of these analysts back and maybe some new ones in as well. We'll see who's all available and tune in tomorrow night for the draft to see who will be breaking it all down tomorrow night in the third and final round. With the 40th pick and the last pick of the second round of the Winter 2020 SFL Rookie Draft, the Arizona Scorpions select Roscoe Justice, wide receiver, Fort Worth, Texas. And before we let the panel break down the whole night, one more time, congratulations to Chase Earl, Davidson Joseph, Alex Constantine, Yogi Barr, Rylan Caudle, Joseph Sabolka, Griffin King, Robert Ems, Jonathan Camp, Shane Easley, Jacob McCall, Ron Hoff, Tim Cleland, Marcus Agrippa, Brock Lee, Whistle Jones, Jeremy Mosley, Mark Gronick, Flash Furman, and Roscoe Justice as our 20 picks in round 2.
Roscoe Justice is the selection. Congratulations, Roscoe. Cam, I have one last question for you, though. I know for anybody that watched the documentary back in the day, you were able to memorize the rosters from the end to end. You going to be able to do that anymore, bud?
By the end of the season, I think. If you ask me in week 13, I'm going to get it. I'm going to somebody hold me to that, and we'll do a contest. I think we might do a bit contest if I can accurately represent all 340 players. We'll see.
That would be impressive. That would be very impressive. We'll have to might get in on that bit contest. That would be something fun to try to see. So Roscoe Justice, wide receiver. We're right at the 2-hour mark, so we'll go around and break this one down and get this show wrapped up. Ray Bentley, your thoughts on Roscoe Justice, wide receiver for the Scorpions?
Well, here's the thing. Eddie Gage is a dog. He said it himself about 500 times back in Atlanta. And as much as I want to see them grab a star kicker, I think it's a really great way to round out their roster, give Ashley another weapon to work with, and really start going places. So again, now that I especially know week 1 is the one to look for, I am very excited about that Scorpions Hyenas matchup.
Yeah, it should be a fantastic game. Colin, your thoughts on the Arizona Scorpions selection at wide receiver? Is that what you were expecting them to do?
Well, to pair him up with the Hans brothers, he should get plenty of looks, plenty of opportunities, and don't forget Tiberius Vaughn is still on this roster, one of a handful of guys to follow Eddie from Oklahoma City. It'll be interesting too to see how Eddie treats DJ Moses the second until. But as far as the pick goes of the wide receiver, I think it's a good pick.
Robert, we started off round 2 with the selection of Chase Earl, a wide receiver, and we end the second round with the selection of Roscoe Justice, a wide receiver. You know, as a offensive player yourself, you know, there's been a lot of defense selected, but are you happy to see, you know, all these offensive players joining the league as well?
Oh yeah, I mean it was kind of to be expected after round 1 was so defensive in itself. But yeah, it's always good to see new guys come in, and I was a new guy myself last year, so just seeing all these guys come in and get a chance to work with these offenses is exciting.
All right, Robert, final thoughts on the draft tonight through round 2.
I think these teams added a lot of key players and guys that they can really build on for years to come. So I'm excited.
Hall of Famer Ray Bentley, your final thoughts.
I gotta say, of all the picks tonight, the one that shocked me the most has got to be, Max Paul, your punter. You did it, man. You got me. I'm not gonna scream, but when we meet, I'll do it for you.
Colin Northrup, your final thoughts through round 2.
I think teams did really well to fill out their needs. The surprising night by far was Alaska taking a punter and not a kicker. I would not guess that in a million years.
So we talked about it on the first night on Saturday about the broadcast team. We are going to brutally screw that one up and call the Florida Storm the Alaska Storm. Colin, you just did it. You just did it, buddy.
Oh, no.
Old habits die hard, man.
They do. I mean, listen, I already apologized to Max Paul on air on Saturday. I told him it's going to happen all season long, and see, right here in round 2 of the draft happened again. Steven, your final thoughts on the draft so far?
I think it's just, a great event. Having been a rookie a couple of seasons ago, I know a lot of the guys undrafted kind of know what you're going through. Just keep your head up, man. This is a great community. And being in the Discord and talking to everybody, I think everybody can feel that. So don't get discouraged. Stay around. This league wants you here. We want you to be involved, and we'll find a way for you to get where you want to be as a player. So don't get discouraged. Don't give up. It's a great time for everybody, and we want everybody to have fun. So just remember that whenever you're trying to react to something, remember that we want you here. You're just as valuable to us as we already. So I think that would be my biggest thing for the draft. Have fun with it. Don't worry so much about where you go, who went first, who went second. Find your fit and where you want to be in this league, and that's where it's going to mean the most for you.
Absolutely. A lot of good players left on the big board. We'll find out tomorrow night who gets selected as we have round 3 to wrap up the season 14 winter 2020 SFL draft. I'd like to thank my panel, Colin, Ray, Steven, and Robert. And for Commissioner Cameron Irvine, I am Mike Dagg saying thank you for joining us, everybody. We appreciate you being here, and we will see you tomorrow night for round 3.
All right.